is part of a series Samgachadvam, may we all progress together. The objective is to cover different topics of security over the course of this series. We want to provide a conceptual overview in these webinars concerning various aspects of security, and hope that this will kindle your interest to explore further. This is the fourth webinar in this series. The topic of today's webinar is Zero Trust, the perimeter is dead. Traditionally, security frameworks defined a perimeter on which you put a strong perimeter security controls, and you don't trust anything outside the perimeter. And the security controls for users and systems inside the perimeter were more relaxed. The zero trust model operates on the principle of never trust, or whether outside or inside the perimeter. It effectively assumes that the perimeter is dead. We are grateful to have Unisys partner with us for this webinar. Unisys is a global leader in implementing zero trust framework through their micro-segmentation solution. The topic for next week's webinar is application security beyond VAPT. Next week's webinar is in partnership with Synopsys, who again is a global leader on application security. We will open the registration for next week's webinar by tomorrow. So we have more such webinars lined up for the next few weeks, and I hope you will find this series of webinars useful. Just a few ground rules. All attendees to the webinar will be on mute by default. We will have a Q&A of the presentation. Alternatively, you can do a raise of hands on the webinar platform, and we will unmute you. All attendees will be provided a certification of participation. But please give us some time to email the certificates over to you. I know some of you have reached out to us regarding the certificates for last week's webinar as well. I would like to apologize for the delay due to unavoidable reasons. But rest assured, we will be sending the certificates for both last week's webinar as well as this week's webinar pretty soon. We are also going to record this webinar, and the recording will be uploaded on the SciSec YouTube channel. So you can always refer back to the video later if necessary. For today's webinar, today we have two experts from Unisys, Dinil Gopinath and Muthukumar Suryanarayanan. Dinil works as marketing manager for Unisys Stealth, which, as I mentioned earlier, is their zero trust based micro-segmentation product. He has been working on the cybersecurity domain for the past 9 years and comes with rich industry experience in areas such as market research, product management, and product marketing. Muthu works as a consulting engineer at Unisys, architecting network security products. He comes with more than 25 years of industry experience, creating enterprise software products in the areas of network management, distributed systems, operating systems, etc. Now I will hand over to the Unisys team to take you through the rest of the webinar. Dinil and Muthu.
Thanks, Karthik.
Yeah, Dinil, we can hear you. You can proceed.
Yeah, all right. Yeah. So, a very good evening to all of you. We are living in an era where organizations and individuals are rapidly embracing digital transformations. Individuals like you and me are using smartphones to communicate, carry out different banking and shopping transactions. Organizations like banks are adopting latest technologies like internet banking, mobile banking, open banking, data analytics, etc. Though all this makes our lives easier and faster, they do come with risk. Let me walk you through some stats. Karthik, can we move on to the next slide? All right. So you see it. Let me explain that for you. Hackers attack every 39 seconds worldwide, which means it's an average of 2,244 attacks a day. Average total cost of a data breach is roughly around $3.9 million. Average life cycle of a breach is 279 days, which is very huge considering the world and the pace at the business moves on. Out of 279 days, 206 days are to identify a breach after it occurs, and additional 73 days is to contain that breach. So these numbers and potential impacts make cybersecurity a top concern for executive teams and board of directors. So let's look at what cybersecurity. It's the practice of protecting your critical assets from malicious attacks aimed at extracting your assets. So what are your critical assets? They are nothing, or they are basically your computers, your servers, mobile devices, electronic systems, networks, and more importantly, data, the most important aspects of this. Let me show you some examples that needs to be protected in our industry. Moving on to the next slide. So you see all the major industries in the world, right? Financial services, travel and transportation, life sciences, government, and the most important one, the manufacturing industry. Let me walk you through some examples that needs to be protected in these industries. I'm sure financial services or banking is something you can relate and connect easily. So what are the steps that should be secured in banks? It would be customer data, it would be account information, the digital system they use, etc. So banks have to invest in cybersecurity technologies that safeguard all their uh, or not sharing your OTPs with second person. These are all aimed at securing your information, your transaction, your account, etc. For example, if you consider the multi-authentication techniques recently, the State Bank of India recently introduced a mechanism of providing an mobile OTP on top of their already existing ATM PIN for transaction about 10,000. So these are mechanisms which are all part of this cybersecurity uh, technologies. So the next one, the travel and transportation industry. It's an industry where they have to protect your personal data, your financial data, and more importantly, protect sensitive infrastructure systems like your air traffic control and uh, s- uh, other systems which house these sensitive informations. You might have read about Bangalore Airport implementing Aadhaar-based entry and check-in for passengers. This involves use of your personal data, the biometrics collected as part of Aadhaar's, etc. And other malicious people. So when it comes to healthcare, this is an industry which is very regulated around the world and that places high importance on personal and health information of patients. India may not be currently using a full-fledged digital healthcare systems, but countries like US have an efficient digital healthcare systems that store patient info, ailment details, treatment history, etc. that would be accessed by multiple hospitals and doctors. When it comes to government sector, they need to protect citizen data and other legacy systems. You know, Aadhaar is being used now for direct benefit transfers for LPGs. It's being used for distributing ration systems, etc. All this involves an enormous use of citizen data and biometric data which needs to be protected. Again, the government would be forced to invest in cybersecurity mechanisms and other tools. When it comes to manufacturing industry, the infrastructure system, the networks, etc., needs to be protected. And if it's not protected, the consequences would be very large. You can just imagine what a cyber attack on a nuclear reactor can do to the world, right? The uh, impact would be catastrophic. So this is just an overview slide to give you an idea of why these cybersecurity investments are happening in this important industries. So now let's look at the impact of data breaches, right? If you're an organization is not protected properly using cybersecurity tools, how could they impact it? So personal and business informations obtained by hackers are published in dark web, and you can gain access to this by paying dollars, and that's how it works, right? And organizations lose their corporate reputation. The customer trust get diminished, profitability reduces, and liability increases. This, for example, Uber paid about $150 million to settle its 2016 data breach nightmare. Same was the case with British Airways, where it was hit with a record 230 million penalty when it was found that their customer data and other financial information was breached. So currently in India, we do not have a data protection law and regulation that mandates strict punishments. But Government of India is in the middle of formulating it currently, and you could expect it to become a law soon. And we may not be able to play around with data as we do now, right? So there are a lot of restrictions which could be expected for individuals like you. Always, or like you and me, we should always use our personal and financial data intelligently, rather than first we need to always ensure that the place where we input our personal and financial information are a secure website, or the mobile apps which we put at, or the negative effects would be beyond our imagination. So moving forward, so how do organizations ensure data breaches are controlled? Right, they invest in security technologies and services. The worldwide spend, as you can see in this graph, it says that the information security spend is expected to reach around $169 billion by 2023, growing at a CAGR of 8.3%. The current market for 2020 is around 132.3 billion. So if you see the graph, you see an almost equal distribution of spend on services as well as technologies, which includes both hardware and softwares. Moving on. So here comes the challenge, right? We in the previous slide we saw organizations are a big gap in cybersecurity talent. The estimated current security workforce is around 2.8 million professionals, while the amount of additional trained staffs needed to close this gap is around 4.07 million, almost the double of the existing professionals. The data indicates a necessary cybersecurity workforce increase of about 145% globally, which means the current total number should have been around 7 million ideally. So you see that, right? Currently it's only about 2.8 million professionals. Situation is probably worse in India. The talent shortages are about 9% higher than the global average. Cyber attacks on the likes of companies like Wipro, Infosys, Capgemini, and other major companies in India have brought to the fore the challenge of uh, filling these skill gaps in cybersecurity space in India. So DSCI, an industry body on data protection in India, there's a shortage of around 1 million cybersecurity professionals in India. This has led to a sharp increase in demand as well as the pay package of such cybersecurity uh, professionals. A huge opportunity for upcoming or budding engineers like you. So you saw how organizations spend big money on security tools and policies, and they're also struggling to find talents. So key here is to invest on the right technologies and approaches. So is it on the traditional methods like perimeter security controls? The answer is a big no. Let's have a look at how traditional perimeter security works, right? I'll take you through an example. So here you see an organization which is protected by firewalls. Within the organization, you you have multiple servers like web application, database, other than database servers, etc. And the organization perimeter, the blue line, which denotes the perimeter, is protected by the use of firewalls. So in this case, the firewall is the single entry and exit point of the company network. A hacker who breached the firewall get access to the entire network, which could mean catastrophic impact. He could do whatever he wants to do with the organizational assets. This system would have worked perfectly well years before, but with the current widespread adoption of digitalization, organizations allow people to bring their own devices. They allow people to access the network from multiple locations. So if you see the COVID-19 situation, most of the IT companies uh, or the companies around the world have implemented work from home policies, and they access this uh, office network sitting at the comfort of their house, right? So so what does that mean? It means that the potential attack surface is expanding, and a single compromised device can be used by the firewall and infect the entire network. So, and in this case, once the intrusion happens, there is no mechanism to prevent the spread of an attack. So, first he may hack one of the system inside the organization, then he would be able to spread it across the entire network within the organization. So, you might have heard of the WannaCry, NotPetya, and the Bad Rabbit ransomware examples, right? They all use the lateral movement techniques to spread on a global scale in 2017. So, going back, please. As I discussed, once the intrusion happens in the traditional security approach, there is no mechanism to prevent the spread of an attack. It goes on and on and on. With the traditional approaches, the other challenge is that non-interoperable tools and technologies prevent us from responding quickly to detect threats, right? So in the one of the first slide, I've talked about the number of days you need to respond or contain an attack. So it was around 73 days or something. So 73 days for an organization or business. Imagine in a bank an attack happens and it takes banks to respond to those. Taking 73 days to respond to an attack is too much. So that these are some of the flaws you would see in the traditional security approach. So what do we do? So we need an approach that shrink the attack surface to decrease the number of attacks, to lower the breach potential, etc. An approach that empowers us to quickly respond to a malicious activity. So Karthik already talked about Unisys Stealth, right? Unisys Stealth enables enterprise and businesses to respond and control a breach or compromise in 10 seconds. That's what our product can do. And that approach is called Zero Trust. And with this, I invite my colleague Muthukumar to walk you through this innovative approach.
Hi, good evening, everybody. So, I'm going to Zero Trust. So, I think Dinil has built up and gave a background on what is cyber security and why we need it and the magnitude of the problems it has. And he brought me to the point, this slide, and said Zero Trust will take care of this. So, how do we understand the Zero Trust? So before we get into more technical aspect of it, I would like to give a very practical analogy to understand what is Zero Trust. Then probably understanding the rest of the technicalities will become easier. To help with that, I'll pick up an analogy, and that is taking all of us to the student life. Some of you may be already in the student life. So you see a college student life, wherein you get into a admission to the college, and then the student is more or less trust what he is going to do, and he will study and take himself further. But if you go to the elementary or middle school phase, I think we all have gone through the phase. In this phase, a kid, when he gets dropped to the school, is defined. Where does he walks down and what is the route it takes to go to his classroom is fixed. Which classroom he goes is being predefined. What dress uniform in a particular day the student has to wear is also predefined. When he goes to the class, he has where does he is supposed to sit, he or she is also predefined. Say if he is a 5th grade student, he cannot randomly go and sit in any fifth section. He has been given a place and he is supposed to go sit. And likewise, when the civil step of his day is being, when he can have a snack, what are the classes are going to happen, everything is predefined for him. And in this whole, even when during the class, he cannot speak and speak to the student, fellow student, right? And if he has to, even what kind of dynamic behaviors that he can exhibit in the school, that is again guided. He cannot loiter around various places. If he need to take a water break or the washroom break, that he has to take the permission from the school teachers before he can do. So in this approach, once a student enters to the school, he is expected, he is supposed to do what he is being told, or whatever he is going to do, he has to take permission. Basically, the education process does not have entrust anything on the student. Is the primary person in this education process. There is no, the entire system doesn't trust the student will behave, he will do, conduct himself, everything. Absolutely no trust is emphasized on the student. Everything else is being governed, either given to him before, or he has to take permission for anything and everything to do. That is quite analogous to what is zero trust. Here, in the case like with your student life, who you are rich or poor, doesn't matter, you have to follow the same uniform. Similarly, there is no distinction in zero trust. Nobody is trusted and everybody is being treated the same way. And anything that you do, it has to be either given to you before, predetermined, or it has to be taken with an appropriate authorization or approvals. So this is the layman's terminology of a zero trust. A student's life in the middle school. What kind of going to work? Looks like it is being working for centuries. Like every country, everybody sends their kids to the school, and we have gone to the school, and every new generation is also going to school. So the education process working in this fashion seems to work. I think we are now going to take it to the understand from this point of view how the security and the zero trust work in the cyber world. Next slide, please. So the zero trust is not something that was very latest. It was being the term coined by a researcher in Forrester in industry cyber analyst firm in 2010. And so they have given a model. So the zero trust is a model how we approach the cyber security. Next slide, please. So now, given this, we know that we need to protect the cyber aspects of it. So what are the aspects involved in this zero trust? So you take the first, you have the users. What is different about the users? For an example, if you are talking about a corporate user, there are people who are inside the campus of the corporate factory or office. There are people say, standing out, going to the field and then working. And people are working from remote, people who are on travel. So all these people belong to the users here. Right? And within the organization also, there may be multiple places geographically done. distributed. That is one thing. Now come to the devices. What do we mean by device? Is it like the servers and stuff like that that we are talking about? Now these devices have grown into a multitude of devices. Like I can connect from my home PC, my laptop from home, and my other gadgets like my cell phone and stuff, tablets and stuff like that, to go and connect to the network. Even in a banking transaction involves people, the clients and customers, to use different devices. So the devices have become too many that has to be brought under the umbrella of the cybersecurity. And the going to the network traffic. I think the network is, I don't need to elaborate on that. The network traffic is all over the place. Like whether you are in a protected office campus, or if you are working from home, or you are in an airport, you are going to have a huge amount of network traffic that is pertaining to this your organization or something for which you are worried about the cyber security aspects of it. And applications, as we know, there are applications in all forms. There are applications in cloud, applications in the corporate office, corporate network, applications in the laptops and palm tops and whatever we have at hands, and cloud, etc. All these aspects, the users, device, network, application, what all of them do is generate data, either in whatever the direction, right? So the data that is on transit is huge, and that needs to be protected. So this is the new dimension of the cyber space to which we need to provide a security, and we think the cyber zero trust will apply to this. Next slide, please. So now that we have seen an analogical way of looking at what is cyber security, it is a more of a, let us define it in more clear form. Formal way. So connecting from a particular network does not determine which server you access. So since you are being in a corporate network, doesn't mean that you are a rightful person to access the resources in the network. There may be already a hacker who has come in from outside. He is in the network. We don't consider it as a network. We don't want to give him the clean sheet that he can access everything. And all this access to the service is granted based on the infrastructure knows you and the device. This is a very critical point about the zero trust security. This is about, like the Aadhaar is used for everything. It is about the identity of the person or the device that decides. Because like a student, for every student, 5th class student, there is a timetable and stuff, so on. So based on your identity, there is going to be rules are going to be applicable to you, and then identity plays a very critical role in this. So given that location doesn't matter, identity is a key thing for you. Now, by matching the identity when he is trying to access any service, to be re-emphasizing, any access or all the access that is being made to any services have to be authenticated, authorized, and the data has to be. You don't trust anybody from a location point of view. You should know the person's identity, and then every single aspect, like the kid has to take permission from the teacher. Every single step has to be completely authorized to provide zero trust here. Next slide, please. So that is again still we have so far talked about the problems. So how do we do that? A simple approach to that, solving the problem. So we have seen this here. We have the in the left hand side you have the users, location, application, and real-time risk and the devices using a key kind of a symbol in the middle. So basically what it says is all of them are being basically you have to bring in a identity-based security for them. You encrypt. You can say that we are going to apply security measures to all these aspects. I think I am able to. Yeah, I'm back. Can you hear me? Okay.
You can continue.
Okay, thanks. Sorry for the interruption. I think it was quite unexpected, and so there is some technical glitch. Apologies for that. So we were just talking about how we are going to translate the zero trust in real terms, whereas we are going to make the user, location, application, etc. to access the apps. So we are going to use a security encryption and those kind of technologies, and we are going to use the every simple access is going to be regulated, and that is going to be allow access, deny access, or MFA, multi-factor authentication. You might be very familiar with. Either we do based authentication, and it could be a fingerprint, and multiple things can be put together based on the security level. So encryption and then the access control is the way to go. Next slide, please. So, okay, now we are getting ready to implement the zero trust. How an organization can go and do it, basically, and they have to prioritize the set of things that is far more important. It is more of a planning and things like that from an organization point of view. They first prioritize, and then we identify the people who are maybe in the protecting point of view. If people are traveling, maybe you can do certain things specifically for the people and devices and that are more inviting more exposures. And then based on this, you can kind of predict and then plan your configuration, how you wanted to have the configuration. And once something if you the systems protect them, then there is a technique called isolation. That is what we are going to talk about further, and that would be the part of the remediation. Once you find there is a problem, and then how do you remediate and still maintain the security for the critical parts. Next slide, please. So okay, so quickly, this is I think some of it we covered it. So why are we talking about a zero trust? I think Real covered quite a bit. So the users, devices, connections, IT security, the complex is becoming very complex, and then given this level of detail that we talked about it, from where we started with the multiple dimensions of it. If you have to take the trusted network approach and you wanted to draw perimeter for this dynamic network and access model, it is going to be completely difficult are being broken. There is no office anymore, because even now people are working from home. So there is a physicalness is kind of becoming fuzzy. And now we talked about it. One of the fundamental aspects that zero trust is built upon is on the identity. So how do we establish an identity for a person or for the device is a very critical thing. Knowing this, now there are becoming attackers are going after the identity. Basically, if I am a bank user, if they know about my identity, my card, or any of those details, and then they will go steal first the identity, then they will go and steal things that they can take away based on what my identity permits. Right? So those are all the challenges that we are finding. So to do this, we need to have a mechanism to solve these problems. Next slide, please. So I think the thing, or we cannot build any more perimeters. So there is a new concept that has been there for a while now. That is what we are going to talk about as a solution for the microsegmentation. Like first we talked about what is microsegmentation and what are the challenges in microsegmentation, how are we approaching it, and what are the technical solutions for that. So what this is trying to do is, you take the example of a corona outbreak right now. So it is all came from outside, perhaps, and then once we realize there is a problem spreading all over things, first thing that we did is containment. So we wanted to identify the hotspots, and then we are going to put them all into zones that are they are a kind of a small world in themselves, and people from that world are not allowed to go out of the go to the other worlds, and within that world everything is served for them, and everything is contained within them, right? So the same concept is being used to do the which we call micro segmentation, which is overlaid on top of the existing network, which is based upon the fundamental tenets like identity. We talked about it. We talked about encryption. Any data that is going back and forth is being encrypted, and there is a strong identity is being established. Like in the case of national security level, we are using Aadhaar. So there are other mechanisms like for identity, we are multi-factor authentication and all those things. Third thing is, very interesting thing is cloaking. So as long as you are only going to permit, so if a fourth standard student is only allowed to do only the fourth standard related activities, for him there is no fifth standard, there is no other world, right? Similarly, if you say if there is a person or a customer or a user in the network and they are supposed to leverage some kind of a service, this mechanism, what it does is it makes sure that you only see what you are permitted to see in the network. Other things, even if there is a network element is there, even if you ping to that network element, you will not get a response, because this is a special world. It's a cased, safe, valid kind of a thing. It is a separate world in itself. You cannot see something outside from this. You belong to this world. You only operate in this world. And if you belong to some other world, somebody will come and give you access to the other world. That's it. Otherwise, if you are in this world, you cannot by your own self, you cannot go and access other world and other resources present in the network. So to do all these things, you need endpoint security. Endpoint is whether the device or whatever you are using to connect to the world, that is has to be. You should have an endpoint that can facilitate encryption, identity, and then cloaking, etc. So basically, what this micro-segmentation does is on top of your physical networks, it lays micro devices and the trust among them, application and the trust. If you belong and you have to supposed to know about these devices and services, you are there, otherwise not. So that is the micro-segmentation approach. Let's go on to the next slide. In a more technical terms, we'll see that. See, in this case, you see the right hand side, you see a lot of devices. So previously it used to be seeing all of them as to be in one network. So what has happened now is, so these for every aspect of it, there is an access that has to come, and that has to be access has to be permitted first. And this side of the world will never get to see on the leftmost side of them. That is number one. They will only get an access to these yellow ones, right? And even if you are in a web application that you are doing, you will never get to see a application here unless if you get into a hacker gets into the web application tier, he will never be able to get into the database. He will not, because that's a different world that he will not be able to see. Only the application to the database, everything is going through this, what do you call this, intrusion protection system, intrusion detection system. That could be a router, or there could be any specialized networking devices or the softwares like the Unisys Stealth, which would be permitting you to giving you, granting access for every part of this access between these things. And that is, they don't even know there is something is present outside. They only know the blue will only know yellow and blue, and then red will only know the yellow, and so on. So this is called the micro-segmentation approach. So anybody who hacker comes to any one of these segments, he has no way to guess what is going in the other world. And within so within that one, if he is going to make any malicious activities, those things are being identified, and it has been zones are being synced in such a way that he cannot spread beyond. Right. So here the identities of the device and people are established, and what they can do. That slide, please. Next slide, please. So we are coming to a conclusion of it. So we talked about what is zero trust and why it is important, and how do we what is the solution, technical solution, what are the challenges in this, what are the technical solution, that is micro-segmentation for this. And this is becoming very important way to deal with cyber security, because we wanted to contain them in a micro-segmented way. Otherwise, we are going to find it difficult to solve problems in these areas, because the 5G and IoT comes in, and you will, your home can be a particular network, and you don't want somebody outside come and switch on your AC or switch off your AC in your home, right? You don't want to have that kind of a security breach. Neither the cars that you're to travel, somebody, you don't want them to be controlling the car elements inside the car, right? So the networks are expanding, are also getting very, very smart. And to solve these things, zero trust is one preferable model, and with micro-segmentation as the method, technical approach to solve the zero trust is a viable solution at this point for us to protect the cyber security in general. With that, we conclude. We can take up questions if there are.
There are some 9 questions which I have posted. You can address that questions.
Okay, so let me start the first question. Can you elaborate on stringing attack surface at the end of the session? So what is an attack surface, right? It's the sum of the different points where an unauthorized hacker can try to enter the network and extract data from that environment. In the image of the organization, which internal and ingress and egress point, right? The entry, there was only a single entry and single exit point for that. So the idea behind using the zero trust and implementing micro-segmentation was to control this attack surface, right? With the initial example, it was the entire perimeter of the organizational network was exposed. With zero trust technology or the approach, we don't trust anybody in the network or in the enterprise, right? The access to the network resources are based on the identity of that role. So even if you are a CEO of the company, you won't be provided the entire access to the network. The access is provided only on a need basis, and you can't need basis. And here the one of the other our product is based on the identity of that person. So even if an attacker compromises through the CEO is able to compromise his endpoint device and enter the network, that attack would happen only around that space where he has been given access. And the advantage of this approach is that rest of the network can function as business as usual. There is no approach. We need not invest our time and resources to find and rectify what the uh, hacker has compromised, etc. Right? We need to just concentrate on a part of the network which is called that segment which had access or which was compromised. So that's called about stringing the attack surface. The next question was on the in case of this approach, the process delay might happen inside the organization. So this micro segmentation approach or the zero trust approach, the one which we follow using Unisys is a complete software based approach, and it can be quickly implemented across the oh. So the next question, there's another question around so what is zero trust and its characteristics? I think this question was posted before we went through those slides. So in simple terms, what is zero trust is not the mechanism behind this is you don't trust anybody inside the network, right? One of the example which I said was about the CEO of a company. So even if you are an employee, the entry level employee, the managers, the employees, the leaders, the managers, on top of that you have director level people. You don't trust anybody. You don't trust anybody, and the access is based on what they need to access in that network. So that's about zero trust and its characters. Mm. So there was another question on this where or identity one or the other. What's your opinion? So let me. I think I've spoken about this. So the example of so that's why you see this multi-factor authentication coming into the picture, right? So it's not that you're dependent on single source of identity, right? So earlier, as I said, I have taken an example of SBI ATM transaction, right? Earlier, if that hacker or a person who had a malicious intent want to hack or extract money from an SBI ATM pin, all he needed was that pin, right? This is just a simple example. So recently they have implemented the mobile OTP as well, right? So to uh, allow you to transact for anything about 10,000. So banks, organizations like banks are implementing multi-factor authentication. So even if you try to log in using your IPIN to your internet banking, they still ask you for an OTP. So this is a basic example which I'm talking environment. These are incorporating this multi-factor authentication technologies. So there's another question around clocking. Is clocking same as snooping, right? So our clocking methodology is that we cryptographically cloak our assets, right? Our internet network assets, uh, making them invisible. So that's a technology which we use as part of our software. We make the resources or the network or the items, the endpoints, etc., invisible to unauthorized access. So as I said, people who want access to a particular segment would also only be given access there. Others or other segments are invisible for him. So snooping is something different where somebody tries to figure out something, right? Especially information about someone's private information, or it could be your personal information or your financial information, etc. So that's about snooping. Another, and is there difference there with respect to RBAC? So RBAC is a you can so as I said, the microsegmentation technology is about segmenting the network and giving access only based on what a user has to access, right? So role based access control is a type of, you can say, you can still use that for microsegmentation. There are some vendors who use RBAC to implement microsegmentation, but problem with that is with that roles. If you see uh, in a in your college environment, right, there are professors, there are principals. So if all the professors would have a access to a part of the network based on their role, so that role is professor. So still you can see that attack surface is a little more bigger. The approach which we use is based on the identity of the person. So identity of the person could be here, right? Professor, within the professor you have other teachers. Professor's name would be an identity. Professor's ours is an identity that of is more than RBSC. So the question is right. RBSC can be used to implement microsegmentation.
Dinil, I think there are more questions. Should I go for a few of them?
Yeah, sure.
So there was a question number 10. Okay, question number 9. Can we protect our data? Any online application can steal our data at the background. How can we ensure our data is safe? So the any data that is in transit, that is on the wire, has to be protected, and that is a fundamental need. So that is done typically using the you know whom you are sending, and the person who is going to receive also knows that you are the one who's sending. So the data and the transit is encrypted. So even though anybody get it inside the wire and then tap it, they will not be able to decipher what is there in the data. So it is high encryption. When it is software based, are you loading the routers? So okay, this is a very good, interesting question. So so the software based need not be on the router based. So our software that we are talking about, or this could be another model also, is this the enforcement is decentralized. That is the endpoint software. And so the if one device is talking to another device, both of them are running an endpoint software, and both of them been given the rules what they can each endpoint can speak and what it cannot do with what are the other devices it can see, it cannot see, and so on and so forth. There is no centralized packet-wise, packet-level routing that takes care of these enforcing the controls. So that way it is really, it will scale very well, and it is also not going to put huge overhead on the routers. Now going to the number is microsegment is a trust zone. So if you belong to the trust zone, if or anybody belong to a trust zone, only that microsegment, that person or that identity will be getting access to. All other microsegments he won't even know, or they will be invisible to that person. So there is no point that a person will won't even know the IP address for him to go back and gain access to it. There's question number 12. When routers are overloaded, the latency will be definitely high. I think that we answered that. We are not, this need not be a router based solution, but there are some router based solutions also there which could do that, basically as a way of enforcing this, where the enforcement happens, and if the enforcement happens at the packet level, at the centralized place like router or something like that, then there would be an overhead. But the solution that we are talking, that would be as you also. And 13, can you justify how efficient the technique with other techniques? So so if you look at the microsegmentation as a technique, is a if you look at it, that is where we compare it with perimeter based security or limited control to the limited perimeters and stuff like that. So if you compare it with those approaches, and this approach is like once you are able to efficiently configure the systems, and that too based on identity based configuration, then you are able to much more efficiently, and you don't need to go back to your network configurations, reconfigurations of your routers and things like that. So this efficiency wise, this should be a lot better. What is I think the 14th question was, what is the impact of zero trust? I think we talked about it. We are going to protect the transaction overhead on that, and there may be a since the traffic is limited to only this segment level, I think the if there are any encryption overheads are there, but today the encryption overheads are being absorbed in the ASICs at the chip level. I think there may be a low single digit overhead, but the gains that you are making in terms of security is huge, and it outweighs the overhead there. And I think question number 14, I think there are more questions. So should we, I think we are on top of the hour. So what should we do? We should go back and give the answers to the people via email or something like that, or we'll go and finish all the questions.
I think that's right. Should we take a couple of questions from the audience?
Okay, questions. Okay. Okay, I'll go to the next question. Question 16: is it filtering at application port or circuit level? So there is basically no filtering that happens. Filtering that says that you are being every packet is being filtered. But yes, you will form rules based on the application port, because this application can be accessed by only those many identities or those many users, and with those identities. So you will form the rules, and the rule specific keys or whatever it is, they are shared so that they are able to exchange the data without further filtering at every stage. So this basically, the way to understand this is, it is not enforcing a rule for a packet by packet thing. So first you form the rules, and then you take all there. So question number 17: is zero trust approach so effective, which was developed in 2010? Is there any new technology developed? Good question. So it is the idea, or the term was coined in 2010, and then the products we are actually having products that are 10 years old plus, things like that, and then there is no better approach that is come up so far, and then this seems to be taking care of the huge amount of networks that we are seeing, and we are running a lot of public networks, private networks, and things like that. And still, though it was originally developed at 2010, the productization and all those things actually got implemented, and people have started adopting it. Still, it is in the very early stages of adoption. So, I think it's very contemporary. Have this much to say. So this is today more relevant at this point, and this technology is right in time. Would it be easy for the hackers, that is, if the details of the security apps are described? Won't it be easy for the hackers if the details of the security are? So in any security kind of a concept, the algorithms are always open. There is no problem with algorithms. All the algorithms are public domain open. The data, that the keys that you have, that is the strength of your encryption. And so the hackers, even if you know the algorithm, you cannot break it, or it will take humongous amount of time to break it, and which is not practical. 19. Is our office all the traffic routed through firewall? Is there any other system to protect from outside world? Please suggest. I think the routing the traffic through firewall is the old way of basically we talked about is the perimeter security. The whole talk about implementing zero trust. Who are offering solutions in this space. I think that would be the way to look at it. And then the last question: how can the phishing be prevented? If it is application based rule, definitely hardware firewall is required. As per the current research, is it not so? How can the phishing be prevented? So the phishing, so the phishing is like you are going to get one data from one piece of data is you are going to make other piece of data, but as long as with a you cannot crack the identity, that is your first step. You may steal some identity kind of a data also. Even if you have an identity based data, you take it, then you cannot see the get into the network, because that is only protected for the trust for those kind of identities. And even if you are every stage of approval, you are going to be validated and things like that, so it is going to reduce the whole stuff. Phishing cannot higher level phishings and stuff like that cannot really introduce a breach in this setup. Okay, yeah, I think we came to the end of the question. I don't know whether we missed any other question in between, and that's about it.
I think most of the questions have been answered. I think we are coming to the end of the webinar. We would request the participants to give the feedback. I'll be broadcasting the link in this. You can take your time and send your feedback, please.
Hey, thanks for the patient listening.